Right guys, day two. I hope you get on well yesterday. Please comment up in the group how you're feeling, how you get on. Was it challenging? Was there any struggles? Because we can always help each other with anything we're struggling with. Because if you're feeling something and experiencing something, it's 100% guaranteed somebody else has done it, felt it, and experienced it, and overcome it. So the importance of the group being a community and helping each other is very, very important. So remember, day two, our newbies, our beginners, you're still doing the warrior diet today. That's your 4-hour eating window. Everybody else, we're in the OMAD. Remember, try and really focus on that wholesome natural food when we're in that eating window. The way I structure my warrior diet, and I like warrior works very well for me. Again, I've made 2 scoops of protein half an hour before my first meal at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, my first meal will be 5 whole eggs. 5 whole eggs, half an avocado, a tablespoonful of hummus. I'll fry those, I'll make an omelette, I'll have scrambled eggs, I'll vary it, but that's my first meal every single day. My last meal will be Greek yogurt with blueberries, where a scoop of whey protein mixed through it, and a sprinkle of honey over the top of it, maybe some nuts if I'm feeling the mood for it. And then my main meal in between will be dinner, chicken, fish, meat, whatever, lots and lots and lots of vegetables, or a huge big salad. Again, maybe some eggs, tuna, chicken, fish, whatever. And that's kind of how I structure. So like a protein shake, breakfast if you want, because I'm breaking the fast, a big main course, big main dinner, and then just at about 7:45, I have the Greek yogurt with the thing, but that's giving me roughly about 150 to 180 grams of protein. So that's me at least hitting my protein target for the day with that. Now again, that gets slightly more challenging with the OMAD because I've got one opportunity. What I'll do, I'll have the egg meal or the dinner plus the Greek yogurt. I always finish with the Greek yogurt and the protein with the blueberries and the honey, raspberry, strawberry, some nuts. I just feel like I'm getting something nice on, like a dessert on, like a treat before I stop. I'm going to the fast period. So we want to talk about today about insulin hormones and what really is going on from a hormonal point of view when we fast, and why is it so effective for fat burning. Right, we talked yesterday about hydration, but we talked about carbohydrates. When you eat carbohydrates, like we said, the body breaks it down into glucose, and then that glucose gets shuttled into the cells, and the cells then store it as glycogen. But we need insulin to actually put the energy, the glucose, from the bloodstream into the cell. So how does this work? So think about when we eat the carbohydrates, depending on how fast or slow of the digestion rate or the absorbability rate, for example, the glycemic index, and this is where we get things like simple sugars and complex carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates are things like bread, pasta, cereal, oats. The reason why they're complex is because they're mixed with fiber, which means the digestion of them is quite slow. They're harder to digest, harder to break down, so the sugar in them gets released into the system quite slow. Now let's say we eat something like banana, honey, chocolate. There's less fiber mixed up in it, it's more just sucrose and glucose. So it's digested very quick and gets shuttled in the bloodstream very, very fast. But what I want you to think about is, see when that sugar hits your bloodstream, hits your blood, if it's glucose or sugar, whatever way you want to call it, from a molecular point of view, they're exactly the same. There's no difference, all right? It's just how quick it's digested and how fast it's absorbed into the bloodstream. The faster it's absorbed into the bloodstream, the higher your blood sugars are going to go quicker. Does that make sense? As a bowl of porridge will give you sustained energy over maybe a 3-hour period because it's slowly releasing the sugar in as everything is being digested. Something like a banana, it's going to last 30 minutes because it's digested straight into the bloodstream, and then it's gone, it's used up or stored or whatever. Right, so the sugar goes into the bloodstream. Depending on how fast it was digested and put into the blood, again, depending on if it's a simple sugar or complex carbohydrate, insulin now has to react. So your pancreas will pick up the sugar, get into the blood, and now it'll release insulin. Your alpha cells will release insulin. Insulin comes and elevates up. Insulin goes to the cell, the muscle cells, the cells in the muscle, and tells the cell to open up, to let this glucose in, to let the energy in. Now, what we have gone on here when we go into perimenopause and menopause, and also some people that are just overweight, also some people who don't exercise and eat a lot of sugar, we have an incident called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is when the cell no longer responds to the signal of insulin to open, to let the energy in. So the energy that we're eating is floating around the system, all this blood sugars, blood glucose is floating around. Insulin's elevated, telling the cell to open up, but the cell won't open. It doesn't hear the signal coming from insulin. That means all this blood sugar's floating around with nowhere to go except stores fat. And at this time, because cortisol, which is a stress hormone, is elevated. It's specifically belly fat, or that mental belly or stress belly. Does that make sense? So fasting is very good for helping to bring back insulin sensitivity, because the muscles get depleted to the point where the cell itself will open up to look for energy, even though there's no insulin around giving it the signal. Does that make sense? All right, so we'll break this down a wee bit more. So insulin comes, says to the cell, open up and let this in. So energy is, by all intensive purposes, an energy storing hormone. It's telling the cells they store energy. Now, when the muscle cells are completely saturated or full or no longer receiving the signal, and there's still energy floating about the bloodstream, which is sugar or glucose, or basically carbohydrates, the body will then talk to the liver and say to the liver, I need you to store this for me. And the liver will then convert it into triglycerides and fats and store that wherever the body wants to deposit it. All right, we'll talk about fat cells in another video. So the body will then store it. So all the energy you use is either stored in the muscle to be used, or if those are full or it won't let them in due to insulin resistance, it'll store it in the belly fat. So this is basically energy that you ate that you didn't get a chance to use. Now, because we're fasting, we get a chance to actually tap into it and use it. Right, so insulin, remember, is an energy storing hormone. Right, what happens now when we go a long period of time and there's no food coming in? If there's no food coming in, there's no insulin being elevated. Now, remember, insulin as an energy storage hormone, its main purpose is to store the energy to bring the blood sugars back down to normal, back down to baseline. So when we talk about baseline blood sugars, your blood sugar wants to stay about between 3.5 and 4. Don't worry what that number is, it's just how much sugar's in your blood. Say about 4.5. Say 4, just for the purpose, your blood wants to stay at 4. If we eat carbohydrates, blood sugar levels go 4, 5, 6, 7. Insulin comes, store all that up so I can bring the blood sugar levels back down to 4. That's your sweet spot. Right. Now let's say we're fasting and we're not eating anything, but we're moving and we're still exercising. We're specifically doing resistance training, remember, and we're working those muscles, but there's no fuel about there to be absorbed back in again. The body's, oh shit, I have no energy left. I'm not eating any energy. I'm getting on floating about the bloodstream. Blood sugar levels start to drop. So the amount of sugar in your blood, because the muscles are sucking this up, starts to go from 4 to 3.5 to 3, right? Anything below 3, we're starting to get dangerous. So the pancreas again, remember the pancreas, whose alpha cells release insulin, the beta cells now release a thing called glucagon. All right, so glucagon goes, oh shit, the liver goes, shit, there's no energy about here. I'm going to have to release some of that stored energy. All right, break that back down. Now remember, the fat that the liver produced, it turned it into triglycerides and it stored it. It's converted it from carbohydrates, right? It turned it into fat. It reverses that process. It's a thing called gluconeogenesis. So glucose meaning glucose, neo meaning new, and genesis means it takes it from one thing to the other. All right, so basically the liver is going to break down the fat. Remember we talked about why we take apple cider vinegar? That enzymatic sort of process that has to happen for the body to break down the triglycerides, the triglyceride backbone, to release the fatty acid molecule into the bloodstream. The liver does that whenever there's glucagon. So the pancreas says, oh shit, blood sugars have got too low. I need to bring blood sugar levels up. So I need to get some blood sugars. I need to get some sugars or glucose in here. Talks to the liver goes to the fat cells, give me some of that fat. As long as it can break it down and process it, apple cider vinegar and lemon, and break it down in the liver, gluconeogenesis, and bring the blood sugar levels back up again from that stored fat. That's when we go into the big fat burning mode. The longer we fast, the longer we go into the energy releasing mode. So insulin, energy storage, glucagon, energy release. Both are designed to bring blood sugars down to baseline and normal. Blood sugar levels go too high, insulin brings it down. Blood sugar levels go too low, hypoglycemia, hypoglycemia. Insulin releases fat to bring blood sugars level back up, because we always want to stay here and play this game. Right? Does that make sense? So, if you eat food, remember I talked about this in one of the first videos, that even though you stop eating at 8 o'clock, you're not technically fasted until all that food has been digested and absorbed, and insulin has then shuttled all the energy where it has to go, and insulin has then come back down, and your blood sugars are going to baseline. Then you're in a fasted state. Now, that's also a term called fat adaptive. Fat adaptive means how quick your body can start to break down the fat to use as energy. Some people are more fat adaptive than others. I am very fat adaptive of years of doing keto and years of doing fasting. I can basically go 4 or 5 hours, boom, my body's releasing that blood sugar. Some people, because the body's so used to eating carbohydrates all the time, that the body can't do this. It's not very adapted. It takes a bit of a while for the body to learn, oh shit, I've got no energy here. I'm going to have to use this, our energy storage system, which evolutionary wise, we should be able to just do this, because we always went periods of time without food. You're going times now where your maximum is probably maybe 3 or 4 hours without food, a wee late night snack, wake up, have breakfast, food, and you can see why there's then things like insulin resistance, chronic diseases, and everything else, type 2 diabetes. It's all going on because of an overconsumption of food, and we never get a chance to use it. So this is why fasting is such a great fat burning tool, such a great health tool. Does that make sense? I hope this helps. So watch out for tomorrow's video. If you have any questions on this, let me know.